President Joe Biden delivered a striking warning over threats of nuclear weapons on the war in Ukraine. He says this is the closest the world has been to a possible Armageddon since the Cuban Missile Crisis. ABC's Jay O'Brien on the atrocities now being unearthed this week.
President Biden making his most outspoken remarks yet about the threat of potential nuclear war. The president arrived back to the White House last night after telling his audience at a fundraiser that Russian President Vladimir Putin is, quote, not joking when he talks about the use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons. Biden added, we have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis. U.S. officials have warned Russia could use weapons of mass destruction in Ukraine as Moscow faces a series of strategic setbacks. Ukrainian military officials say they've now taken back more than 150 square miles of land from the Russians since October 1st. And as Russian troops retreat, they're leaving behind new evidence of atrocities. Alexander is the deputy head of the team looking into possible war crimes. He says in practically every town, there were such places where people were brought in for interrogation and torture. His team getting a tip on a potential mass grave and unearthing this, an apparent torture pit dug into the ground. Buried near the bottom, what appears to be civilians. Meanwhile, the exodus of fighting-age men from Russia is taking a new turn. 2 Russians fleeing Putin's military draft have requested asylum in the U.S. after sailing across the Bering Strait to a remote island that belongs to Alaska. The Russians were taken to Anchorage for processing. The narrowest distance between mainland Russia and Alaska is about 55 miles. Now, the governor of Alaska says he does not anticipate a steady stream of Russians heading into his state anytime soon. Jay O'Brien, ABC News, Washington.